Hey everyone, it's Coach Dave March here for another episode of the Growth Mindset Podcast. If you have been watching us and been seeing us, I always talk about my book here, Vision and Action, as we talk about different people and their taking of their visions into action for their business. And we have different entrepreneurs on the show here. And today we have Jake. Jake is the founder and CEO of Gemini Sports. We're here to tell his story and we're here to talk more about his background. Jake, tell us a little more about you and your business, and then we'll go right into, how you started the whole thing.
Awesome. Coach Dave, thanks for having me. Big fan of your work and excited. It's a real pleasure. My name's Jake Schuster. As I said, I'm the founder and chief executive at Gemini Sports. We're a pretty young software startup based out of Miami. I was born and raised in the Boston area, wrestled and played lacrosse in college, got injured a lot and wanted to figure out why. So I studied sports science, kinesiology in my undergraduate, did a master's in physiology and sports nutrition at Loughborough University in the UK, and went on to work on my PhD over in New Zealand with the All Blacks rugby programs, the women's and the men's programs towards the 2016 Olympic Games. And when I was there, I had to learn 3 coding languages to process all of the data that I was collecting for my dissertation project. I was also an assistant coach for the team. I was a contractor for the national cricket team, coaching at 6 a.m. for those athletes before coaching a rugby team. I was a bartender on the weekends because the scholarship didn't pay enough, to cover the rent. And I'm here learning 3 coding languages. Like, this is awful. And I said, someone's got to make this easier. And so post-COVID, I kind of was just kicking around this idea in my head, like there's a gap here where decision makers at sports clubs, having at that point worked in pro sports for 9 years, decision makers at these teams, they should be able to answer questions that they have themselves. They should be able to type it in or speak it or click some buttons and get answers themselves to their most critical questions that they have to make the decisions that they're making every day. And this proliferation of analytics across pro sports has been exciting, but it's so nascent. It's not as mature as the average fan might think. And I just think it's crazy, no matter how smart the engineers are, that a decision maker should be helplessly reliant on another human to answer their questions. It's 2025 now. We've got to be able to answer things ourselves. And so I sought out to create Gemini, and we've raised $8 million in venture capital to date. We have investors that collectively have stakes in 27 professional sports teams around the world. And we've got a staff of 8 right now and some of the best investors I can imagine. And we get to work with some of the coolest sports teams on earth.
Yeah, it's great, man. It's quite a journey, right? Quite a journey you've had so far. And it's interesting how much data analytics is getting into our lives, really. More and more software engineering and data analytics and data science is like creeping further into our lives, no matter what industry, no matter what you're doing, it's getting closer and closer.
Yeah. And it's funny. You're absolutely right to say that, but I wish we'd stop calling it those things because it's all just information. Like I often say that the most important data that a general manager of a sports team could look at is a scouting report, right?
Mm-hmm.
We often talk about, are humans all going to be out of jobs? Is my subject matter expertise going to become obsolete? And I say absolutely not. Automation is as old as time, right? Sure, maybe horses had fewer jobs when the car came along, but those are the exceptions, not the rules. The ATM did not put the bank teller out of a job. It allowed them to focus on a higher skill work, and banks function differently because of it, and so do consumers. So, subject matter experts will always remain. They're just going to be empowered with much better information.
You know what? And the thing is, the issue with like your chat GPTs and all your things like that is that first of all, when they make a mistake, they don't tell you they make a mistake.
That's right.
That's like they just go right into it. A human being, if you made a mistake, be like, crap, yeah, I made a mistake here, man. I gotta let you know.
Yeah. Or they'd say, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. Let's say I don't know. And so I bring it up because someone has to be like the architect on the top, kind of looking down and saying, okay, no, this was done wrong. This was done right. And so it's just going to kind of bring us up, especially the people that are in the software engineering, data science, bring us up to a higher level where you are now kind of the architect of this whole system, and you have to figure out, you're like, okay, this is wrong, this is right, this is the direction I want to go with it, because the models won't tell you that. They'll just
Yeah.
continue to go.
They'll just continue to go. And yeah, there will always need to be the subject matter expert in place.
Yeah, always. So yeah, I don't think that's going anywhere. Now with the journey you've had, right? I mean, it probably wasn't easy to get to 8 million and all these investors and everything. What was that like? What is there ever time where you kind of like doubted that this would even go about? You know?
It's funny when you said, sounds amazing. What a journey. I thought to myself, yeah, it sounds really easy to say it like that. But
Yeah.
that took, look, it was the end of 2021 when I went full time on my idea, where 5 people that I met at the gym told me, hey, if you go full time on this, we'll give you 10K each. I did not come from a socioeconomic background that I was able to self fund or bootstrap. And it took more than 6 months and more than 40 venture capitalists pitched before one said yes. And then I was able to raise a pre-seed, which was enough money to go for about 8 or 9 months, realistically, hiring a couple of engineers and trying to build a V1 and failing spectacularly. And then it was survival mode for another 6 months to try and raise a seed round. And we found a spectacular group of investors. And that was enough to go, a period of time, continuing on with the wrong product, getting up to nearly $1 million in revenue, throwing out the old product, bringing on new investors, building a new product, and then bringing that new product to market. So it's a journey. And I think something that founders often don't think about is you can have this perfect plan, but then you're going through the under the macroeconomic environment. And, when I first raised, as I might have said, money was basically free. And now it's the opposite. And the goalposts have completely shifted of what you have to do to achieve a further financing. And I think venture capital has completely shifted. You're learning so many different things on the fly, so many completely new skill sets that raising capital isn't as simple as getting your pitch right and having a compelling product.
Yeah. You know, that's such a good point, right? Some people focus on the product. That's the issue, right? And I'm working with a fractional CRO right now, and we're talking about this. Some people focus on the product, and I think it's a thing between entrepreneurs and visionary people where they're just like, I'm just going to be super super technical with this vision, with this product. It's going to be the best product ever. I'll make it so good, and then you show it to people, and it's just like they don't get it.
Yep, been there. I'm there weekly.
It's like, because from your standpoint, from the technical point of view, and you know what you're doing, and you say like, look, this is it. This is amazing. Isn't this great? We don't get it. What did you do?
Yeah. I'll do you one better. I was on the phone this morning with a big team who passed on us for now. They said, we're probably going to come back in 3 or 4 months for this, but we want to try and achieve some other things first. And I was talking with one of the key stakeholders, and they were talking about how no matter what I would say or what I would show them, the key decision maker was fixated on 10% of what we do and how that fit into what they were doing or what they were already doing. And
Mhm.
that happens. That
Yeah,
happens.
100%, 100%. And so the journey is really moving on past that, right? Persistence, because that's the end of the day. That's what it takes.
That's what it takes. Yep.
you know 40 people, yeah, you have to go through 40 no's to get one yes, kind of thing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So while you're going through all those challenges and kind of doing all those things, one of the things I like to talk about is what's called nervous system regulation. Have you heard of that before? Yeah, because it can definitely upset you, right? Going through all these things, right? So yeah, you got to keep kind of even keel. And so, is there something that you get into, meditation or things like that, to keep things positive and moving in the right direction?
Yeah. I try a lot of different things. I think being consistent about them is the hardest part. I go for
Yeah.
pretty long walks with my dogs every day when I'm home. This will probably be the second straight year that I'll spend about 200 days on the road. So it's not always an option that I have. I know a lot of people aim for 10,000 steps per day. I try and never be below 15,000. So I try and walk everywhere or go for a good couple laps at night. I don't always pull it off on travel days, but I try and hit 20,000 steps at least a couple times a week. So just walking, I think is one of the most restorative things in the world. I've never managed to quite pick up a meditation habit, but I do have pretty good hygiene around putting my phone away when I get in bed and reading a book. And I find that helps. I've realized that I can't read. I probably have a bunch of books behind me that are like getting better at life and business books, and I can't read those at night. I read adventure books, history books. I'm reading a book about a shipwreck right now, that kind of stuff. So reading is big for me. And just having a gratitude practice in the morning before I look at my phone, spend a good 5 minutes practicing gratitude. And that I find helps a lot.
No, 100%. Yeah, I mean, it's so important to have those kind of practices, because at the end of the day, it's like you're doing this because you love yourself, and you do this because you enjoy it, right? And so it's like you have to kind of remind yourself that when things get hard, right? You're 40 nose deep into this particular project, and you want to keep going for the 40, 41, 42, and you got to keep that positive mental attitude going, and do different things that can rejuvenate you, and it could be simple, right? It could be simple. It's just going out and going for a walk. It doesn't have to be complicated. Doesn't have to be complicated at all. That's
Yeah.
kind of the big piece too.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, a lot of times people try to think about the most complicated things, and they're just like, you don't have to do all that. You could just walk around.
Yeah. Well, I've got a great example there where I had a period of time where I was really into cold plunges, ice baths, right?
Yeah,
Very trendy right now. And I still often take opportunities to do them when I can if I'm in a place that has them. But there was a period of my life where I was going consistent 3 times a week. I was sleeping great, felt great caffeine tolerance. But like I realized that there's a point or there's a season in life where you're actually just adding stress by doing that. I know there's the whole like, some stress is good stress and you're creating a positive response physiologically and all that. I'm like, I do enough really hard things every day. I don't know if I need to do something else that's extremely hard. Like, I don't know if I need to put my body and mind through this. And I completely appreciate the dynamic that, you kind of prove to yourself something at the start of the day and it sets you up for the rest of the day. And I've had those moments, but right now I'm choosing like I'm good. I don't need to be doing that right now. I love saunas. It's a different kind of hard,
yeah,
and just working out. So I think the spectacular examples aren't necessarily always the best examples.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, no, that's some great feedback there for sure. When you go, when you're doing your business right now, right? You said you have a team of about 8 people. One of the things I like talking about is leadership. I think that leadership is really important. It's one of those things that's like funny because it's like, we don't really get taught leadership growing up, right? It's like they don't tell you how to recover over a breakup in school, and they don't tell you about like leadership, like
Yeah.
things that are like important to life in school. So I like to talk about leadership a lot on this podcast as well, and so what are some of the ways you're leading your people to create a good company culture and to you know hit your goals?
Yeah, it's such an interesting one, right? To what you said a second ago, it's funny. I managed throughout my first career plenty of strength and conditioning coaches, sports scientists, physical therapists, nutritionists, all that stuff. And that was nothing like managing sales guys, software developers, product managers, etc. And so I find very few of these skills are transferable, actually. So I find I'm finding myself quite caught on the fence on the following that sometimes I feel that the art and science of how to communicate and how to deal with people and manage people and influence people and understand people is the most important pursuit for success in life. Sometimes I feel like understanding that negotiation, empathy, all that stuff is like the most important pursuit for any ambitious person, anyone who wants to live a good life and have great relationships. And then sometimes I think to myself, life moves too fast. We're trying too hard to achieve something too great. We don't have time for that stuff. We've just got to communicate what we need and go, and just communicate to win, not communicate to be loved or to make people feel better. Communicate to win. I really enjoyed recently reading Walter Isaacson's Elon Musk biography. And I think it spends a little bit too much time fixating on his so-called Asperger's, but I really appreciated the commentary on how he's a wildly effective leader. He's a wildly effective leader of people. He's a wildly effective leader of companies. Doesn't mean he's consistently loved or admired or appreciated or easy to be around. It doesn't mean that there isn't high turnover or carnage of staff behind him, but he wins. He wins a lot. He wins more than anyone else on earth today. And now, is he happy? Is he low stress? I can't answer those things, but I could speculate. And so of course, there's got to be some kind of middle ground in there. But I think it's so tricky. I think people could read every book there is to read about leadership and communication styles and completely fail at their business, right? Or people could be considered absolute jerks and be wildly successful. And again, it's not binary, but I think it's an open question. I don't have a hard and fast leadership style. I think if you're breaking down the typical archetypes, I'd be considered like a visionary leader, not the operator leader, not the empathetic leader, but the visionary leader. But I think that there's an open question about what methods are most effective.
Yeah, I love the response.
Something I've been thinking about a lot recently.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's soup. This got a lot of juice to it. It's got a lot of juice, man. Yeah, there's a lot to break down there, man. Why don't we start with the idea of winning, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we need, we want to grow, we want to have a successful business, and I guess sometimes that leaves a trail that is not always 100% positive.
Yeah. So what do you want me to focus on there? What's the question?
That's a good one. That's a good one. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there. Like I said, I think that the main issue though is really, for the most part, you want to keep the people around you that are going to be successful and growing, right? So you don't want to be in such a situation where people are leaving left and right, or it's just a revolving door.
Of course.
Because the cost of retraining and recruiting and everything is going to affect the bottom line of the business, and then you're not really winning because you're constantly having this like leaky bucket syndrome, if you will.
Yeah, without question.
Yeah.
No, that is undeniably the case at the extremes. However, and I might get some flack for this, but I've recently found myself wondering, in 10 years, do I want to be, sitting there with my wife saying we made it, we've built our dream life, or do I want to be saying, or do I want to have nothing but say, I'm so glad I was extra nice to that person, or gave them an extra month to try and figure out if they were a fit for our company, right? Which do I want? And anyone who says the second answer is a filthy liar. And so I think of course you don't want that leaky bucket. Of course you don't want people leaving a lot. But I think there is a appropriate amount of carnage that will be left behind in any ambitious pursuit.
Solid answer. I mean, it's an honest answer. I appreciate that. Well, look, typically we have these podcast episodes about 20 minutes, and I think we covered a lot of ground. We covered a lot of ground here. Is there anything else you would want to add about leadership? Because I feel like this is a topic where like I said, you got a lot of juice in this one. So is there anything else that you want to add about that? We can get into it.
Well, maybe I can just speak to like the things I find myself thinking about a lot, and the areas that I think get underreported on in terms of what's important for effective leadership. A couple things. One is I think people, so you probably heard the phrase, the biggest error of communication is often the assumption that it's happened, right? And I find so much of life is just about expectation, setting and expectation management. And everyone thinks that they've been clear about their expectation, and they probably haven't. And it goes both ways, right? And between different parties. And I think just setting, monitoring, managing, and nurturing expectations for anything with anyone is a very, very underserved dynamic. So that's one thing that I've been thinking about a lot. Whether that's, here's what I expect of my staff. Here's whether, and it could be about quality of delivery. It could be about how many hours you're working. It could be about how you want to be communicated with. Any of those things. It's critical. The other thing I think is leading in a way that suits you. You know, it's a fun and impossibly nuanced debate in sports. Do you want to focus more on a player's strengths or their weaknesses when you're scouting a player or judging a player? And I think it's similar with leadership. Am I the hyper organized operator who's deeply empathetic in every way? Not only am I not, Dave, I will never be that. Ever. Can I lead with a vision? Can I inspire? Can I show people the way? Can I get people excited? Can I show that I care enough about influencing outcomes that I'm someone that you want as an ally? I can do those things. I can do those things. So potentially, as long as the weaknesses are not liabilities, focusing on the strengths might be worthwhile in this case. And so I think a lot of people feel that they need to fit into a box or that they need to lead like this type of CEO. And, you know, Jensen Huang and Steve Jobs are dramatically different types of CEOs, both maybe in the top 25 best CEOs in tech history. Same with Frank Slootman from Snowflake, was one of my favorites for a long time. And everyone that I know that worked for him said, yeah, the extreme Dutch honesty and directness isn't for everyone, but we really appreciate it because we know exactly where we stand and we know exactly what's expected of us. So I think your leadership style will filter the people around you. And on that note, like, you know, not to talk too much about turnover, something I've realized now that I'm a couple of years into this, not only is not everyone a fit for what you're trying to do and the way you're trying to work, but not everyone's a fit for the long run. People will have their season. They'll have their chapter. They'll be enough of a fit for enough of a period of time. And then you'll need something else from that role, or you'll need something else from your staff in general. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're a bad leader. Everything has its time. And I think when you're a young founder, you want everyone to like you. You want everything to last forever. And it's just not quite going to work that way.
Yeah, well, that's actually really some really great input there. Yeah, I think that's it's huge. It's really about knowing yourself, really, at some point, and you just like, hey, this is how I'm gonna be. This is how I'm not gonna be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, people I like to like look at is like the Simon Sinek's of the world, where he's got some great,
I
great
recently
stuff.
lost my reading glasses, but I get told that I look like him when I'm wearing glasses like once a week. He's a lot taller than me, but smart guy, smart guy.
Yeah, yeah. So I tend to like that, and yeah, I mean, you just there's just gonna be people that are gonna like you, and like your leadership style, and people that are just not gonna get it. I find that for me, yeah, I'm more like the innovative type. And what happens is people are actually scared of innovation. They're
100%. We could do a whole episode on that one.
Yeah, I find that to be true all the time. Because I'll come up with some like really innovative idea and they're like, wow, we haven't thought of this before. Really great idea. Here's a
Not going to
problem.
do it.
Here's a problem. We haven't thought about it before and we're not going to do it.
Yep. Yep. I hear that almost every day.
But so yeah, that's what I would go with. Yeah, more that sort of leadership. And yeah, we could probably do another episode just on innovation alone.
Or on high performance habits, right? You know,
Yeah.
with that background, like I'm not going to say I'm a science experiment myself, but I've had to learn how to travel well.
Travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you were asking, you know, about like mindfulness practices and those things, going to sleep really early and learning how to be disciplined with what food you put in your body. That's 80% of the battle.
80%. Yeah.
I really think so. I think people overcomplicate it so much. The amount of times I see a tweet that someone's like, here's my secret keys to health and longevity. Go to sleep early, eat clean foods, exercise every day. It's like, oh, wow, I can't believe no one's ever told me that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that, again, we could have a whole episode on this too, but I think that the real issue is where we have food like products made in a lab instead of made in a garden that
Yeah,
are not very nutritious.
right.
And then people eat them and they're like no new nutrient, like maybe high in calories, but very
Yeah,
low in nutrition.
yeah. And there's just so much propaganda. And I think people feel like you need to spend a lot of money or get super complicated about it to be healthy. And it's just such nonsense. You can go get a $7 package of ground beef and put it in a pan, put a little salt on it, and it's a fantastic meal. It's a tasty, flavorful meal, and it's awesome protein, and you're good to go. And you can do that twice a day and just look phenomenal. Like I eat a little more creatively than that. My wife's Brazilian and she loves to cook, but like eat in a way that many outsiders might say, oh, it's so restrictive. I could never do that. And you know what? I am happy. I love my meals. I think they're very flavorful. I have plenty of variety. I'm not worried at all. So it's really a perception is reality thing. And people make this stuff as hard or as easy as they want to.
Yeah, well, as long as the meat isn't being done in a printer somewhere, that's what
That's
they're talking like.
exactly right. Stay away from my kitchen, Bill Gates.
Yeah, there's like you've heard of this, right?
Oh
There's
man,
people out there trying to make
gives me
meat
nightmares.
with a 3D printer.
Gives me nightmares. Nope. I want to shake my farmer's hand.
It's unbelievable. But that's what I'm saying. As long as the food is made in some kind of pasture or garden, nature, that's fine. No labs, no 3D printers,
No,
just
thank
real
you.
food.
No, thank you. Real food.
That's all you need. Wow. Well, I think this has been a great episode. We really got a lot of topics here. I think we'll end it off here, Jake. End off with, a way people can contact you, and your website, things like that. And yeah, go from there.
So I'm a huge fan of Paul Newman and the film Cool Hand Luke. So before I understood how to make a cool Twitter profile, I made mine 100 years ago, and it's Cool Hand Jake GS. So those are my initials. It's my personal one, or you can just look me up, Jake Schuster. And my company is on Twitter at Gemini_sports and Gemini Sports AI on LinkedIn. And anyone's free to email me at jake@geminisports.a.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Jake, it's been great having you on the show here. We might go for another one on innovation. Who knows?
Count me in. Coach Dave, thanks so much for your time today.
You got it, man. Signing off. Bye bye.